Hello, I'm Bret Moss, and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guest today is Dr. William R. Johnson. He's presiding elder of the Los Angeles and San Diego district of the C.M.E. Church. And it's really a pleasure for me to welcome you today to our show, Dr. Johnson. Welcome to The Defining Moment.
Thank you, Bret.
Pleasure to have you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson has a distinguished academic background as well as a distinguished background within the C.M.E. Church. He has a bachelor's degree from Lane University. He holds 3 master's degrees, one from Columbia University, one from Princeton University, and one from ITC. And he also has a doctorate from Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. And Dr. Johnson, you grew up on the panhandle of Florida, and you've been living here in California for nearly 20 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. Well, I want to ask you, Americans were shocked by the dismal response by local, state, and federal authorities to Hurricane Katrina. Many people saw what happened on their televisions and were really just simply in a state of shock. For many, it was a new opportunity to re-examine racism and poverty. And what I want to ask you is, how do you view the racial divide in America in light of those recent hurricanes?
I think, Bret, that Hurricane Katrina, more than any rest of them, really brought to America's consciousness that there is real poverty in our nation.
Absolutely.
We have heard of poverty, and many of our citizens in this country have seen evidences of poverty in small pockets.
Yes.
In Chicago, in New York, in Los Angeles, the homelessness in downtown Los Angeles.
Right.
But Katrina showed us a city that we thought was America's showpiece.
Yes.
I have been on Bourbon Street, Canal, and all the French quarters. And
I know
New Orleans.
Uh-huh.
But this part of New Orleans that Katrina really brought to bear to us an understanding that over half of the citizens of New Orleans were living beneath the poverty level.
Yeah.
Living in squalor, really, in shanties. And this really has said to us, America, where are your values?
Yes.
What have you been doing all of these years?
Yes.
Other than, making the rich richer and the poor poorer?
That's right.
Because the poorer people are the ones who have made New Orleans what it is.
Mm.
When you go to Bourbon Street, who do you see? You see the blacks, musicians, black shine boys. You see them all over, but they're not making any money. They're doing nothing but showboating for the city of New Orleans.
Yeah.
And that's where it is all over this country.
So you're saying that New Orleans is not an exception. In big cities all over America, that is the reality.
That is the reality. You can go to, we went to Gulfport, Biloxi, Mississippi. Although these cities are not as large as New Orleans, most of them are rural. And what did you find in the rural areas of Mississippi? Poverty.
Yeah.
People still living in shanties. My father, who died 2 or 3 years ago, 93 years of age, is from Southwest Alabama. And we used to love to go to Southwest Alabama, to the country. And people were living then in shotgun houses and shanties,
This was how many years ago?
And this was back in the 50s.
Right.
And people are still in those rural areas of Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana.
50 years later, their conditions have not improved.
Have not improved.
Yeah.
And yet, our economics have improved.
No, the country right now is enjoying so much wealth, so much economic development, and you just really feel America has really kind of reached a new level of economic strength, and yet you don't see that reflected in the situations we saw with Hurricane Katrina.
Of course not. And most of us, black and white, who have reached a certain economic plateau, we call it middle class,
Yeah.
do not even envision the squalor, the poverty that goes on in this country.
So you're not here to say that it's just a problem of the white folks. You're saying that it's kind of a conspiracy. It's kind of a shared conspiracy in a sense.
I'm not even saying it's a conspiracy. It's just something that we have allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Without knowledge and without any concern.
So then it's a product of ignorance then.
It is. For a large part, it's ignorance. But then on the other hand, it's racism.
Yeah.
And of course, racism is ignorance of a higher nature anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say that, for instance, the African American people who live in Watson, in Beverly Hills, whether Ladera Heights, they have forgotten that there are yet people of African American, Hispanic, and other minorities who are living in squalor. That they go to bed hungry.
Yeah.
And some of them are without a good education. They're without the wherewithals to make it in a capitalistic society.
Yeah. So it was as much a wake-up call for African Americans as it was for everyone else.
Yes, definitely so. Definitely so.
Okay, well that's very interesting. How far are we from making Dr. Martin Luther King's dream, when he spoke of, "I have a dream," how far are we from making that a reality here in America?
Let's see. If his dream was the point of departure, and we want to go this way, I'll say we have reversed.
We've gone backwards.
We have gone backwards.
Since he made that
Since
speech.
he made that speech.
Can you talk about that?
America has not yet come to realize what it means to be America, in that what the Constitution says and what all of the other legal documents say about America. There never has been a country that took under consideration the minorities. It was founded by Anglo-Saxon white males, and all of the laws
Written by those
were
people.
written by them and also catered to them.
Sure.
And their kind.
Yes.
Jews were excluded. The Irish were excluded. You know, you had to be Anglo-Saxon white Protestants.
Yes.
We have not moved too far from that. So Martin Luther King's dream was countered the WASP idea of America. And as glorious as that address was, that speech was in 1963, and the movement that followed immediately in what we call the civil rights era of the 60s and the early 70s, tremendous changes was made in America. They're good. But it's like taking a medicine. You take it so long, and after a while, you start, laying off of it. Because you think you have reached a certain plateau, you're well enough now, you don't need it.
Right.
America has that feeling now. America feels that it has done enough
for civil rights.
For civil rights. America has, we have integrated the schools, we have integrated this, and we have let you do this. We have 2 or 3 spooks that sit by the door of all of your major corporations. We have That's taken from the book, you know, The Spook That Sat by the Door.
Okay.
You have, you know, we have given you every opportunity now to become whatever you want to become.
Yeah.
We look at the government today. You have the Clarence Thomases on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
We're now talking about putting Alito on the Supreme Court. And I don't know whether he's conservative, moderate, or liberal.
Yes.
But the liberals are all happy because he's now being nominated and maybe confirmed in a little while. Why? Because they want to make sure that the minorities' rights are minimized. And so, and as I look at our communities, we see our young boys and our young women losing themselves. Rather than moving ahead, they seem to be retrogressing.
Yes.
So if we look back in '63 with the I Have a Dream,
yes,
we are still dreaming. I would love to see, I tell my wife all the time, I wish we would stop talking about I have a dream. I wish we would say that the dream has been fulfilled.
Yes.
But the dream has not been fulfilled, and the dream will not be fulfilled until America comes to understand that the minorities in this country have as much right to be in this country as anyone else, because all of us are immigrants.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I would like to suggest that, in a way, many of the external remedies, you know, that are given through the legal system are just that. They're external remedies. And that until a real revolution of heart within each human being takes place, you know, where we see each other as brothers and sisters, you know, the same way that whites among whites see each other, in the same way that blacks or African Americans among African Americans see each other, you know, until that kind of consciousness transforms our way of seeing things, I think racism will persist.
What you got to remember, though, Bret, is that whites among whites, there's a differentiation also, because there's a rich white and there's a poor white.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And white America doesn't care whether you're white, black, blue, or brown. If you're poor, you just in that category called poor.
Absolutely.
As we used to say down in Florida, you po. You know.
Right.
And also black and blacks. There is almost as much discrimination among blacks.
Yeah. So it's really two things at the same time. One is racial discrimination.
And there's also economic.
Economic discrimination.
Yes.
Prejudice.
Yes, prejudice. Yes.
And it's important that we understand that in order to be effective in dealing with the problem.
Definitely so.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
Okay, very good. Do you feel that African Americans have become complacent in terms of going about achieving true equality and true dignity for themselves and their families?
I have I've forgotten the name of the sermon, but I have a sermon that I preached about that. Because I do think that we as African Americans have forgotten, for the most part, the struggles of our foreparents, what they had to go through to bring us to this point. I won't even have to go back to the slave issue.
Okay.
The segregation and the discrimination between the Civil War and the Civil Rights movement. But even since the Civil Rights movement, the kind of struggle that African Americans have had to go through just to affirm who they are has been tremendous. And somehow or another, we as African Americans have come to the point of believing that we have arrived. We can live in a place we want to live.
Yes.
If we can afford to, to buy the house.
Exactly.
We can ride in Mercedes.
Right, Mercedes-Benzes and Jaguars.
And Jaguars and big Cadillacs. Of course, black preachers always had Cadillacs.
Of course.
Of course.
Okay.
And so we have become complacent in that the struggle is not as it once was.
Yeah.
There are those who are still out there trying to struggle, and we look at them as radicals. We look at them as troublemakers, disturbers of the peace.
Okay.
But
are there any names in particular that come to mind when you talk about the radicals, as seen from the African American perspective?
Well, it's according to where you are on that continuum.
Yes.
Because let's just look at Farrakhan.
Okay.
Farrakhan is considered a radical.
Uh-huh.
I would call him a moderate.
Yeah.
Jesse Jackson is considered a liberal.
Uh-huh.
A liberal radical, but I would classify him more of a moderate.
Yeah.
Because there is nobody really, except in small groups in inner cities, who are really out there radicalizing the community, trying to bring the African American community in some kind of cohesiveness whereby they can do something to change their situation.
Yeah, so when you say radicalizing, you mean providing a bold vision.
That's correct.
Uh-huh. Because for some people the term radicalizing might have a negative connotation to it, but when I hear you use it, I know you see it as something that gives hope to people.
And what we need are some people who have some innovative, creative imagination about how to mold these young people in our community into some kind of a movement that will change their appreciation as to who they are and what they can become.
Yeah, it's critically important.
And I don't see enough of that.
Yeah. You mentioned the young African Americans and the plight of the young African Americans. What can people like yourself do to give a hand up to young African Americans? How there's so many challenges, so many barriers, so many difficulties facing that particular group of people. What can be done by the community at large? I don't mean just by you personally, but what can be done as a way of empowering young African Americans to find a brighter future for themselves?
First of all, we who have arrived in the African American community must realize that we cannot give up on our children.
Yes.
Too many of our parents, too many of us as parents and grandparents have almost thrown our hands up.
Yes.
Saying that there's nothing we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But I am of the opinion that we are the only ones who can do something.
Exactly.
That our young people are out there now struggling, trying to find their way by themselves.
Yes.
And we of the human species, if I understand it correctly, are known for training our young people.
Yes.
For taking them from birth through at least 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm. So raising a child.
To raise a child in the way he or she should go.
Exactly.
But we have allowed our children to become self-teachers.
Mm.
And it has stemmed, I think, and I'll never forget back when I was living in Memphis, talking to Roy Wilkins, who was head of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People. I told him, and I told Jesse Turner, who was then the National Treasurer of the NAACP, who was a member of my branch there in Memphis. that the worst thing that has ever happened to African Americans in this United States is integration.
Mm.
And I believe that to be true.
And can you tell us why?
Because integration has led us to believe that white is right.
Uh-huh.
And we want to be like them. We want to be integrated.
Right.
Which means that we want to put down all that we have. This is a part of our heritage.
It's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, we're going to throw it away.
Uh-huh.
And so our young people are growing up now without really an appreciation of who they really are.
Mm.
They don't understand the dynamics of being black or being African American. And I get tired of these different name changes.
Sure.
And so integration has said to our young people that you are not good enough to just be black. You've got to be prepared to integrate.
Mm-hmm. And adopt the values.
Adopt the values of and the culture of the white man.
Mm-hmm.
And we give this idea that we may never say this,
right,
but by our actions we evidence this. And so we give this to our young people, and they don't know that they are somebody, that they have come from Africa.
Yes.
That they were brought here, sold by Africans to the white man, brought here, sold to the slave owners, and all of that we are. We just know that we were slaves. We don't know anything about our history. We don't appreciate who we were before. And we don't even appreciate how our parents brought us through the slavery years.
Exactly.
And please, nobody wants to even talk about the years of discrimination and between 1865 and 1965.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my folk all the time, I say the Jews have no problem talking about the Holocaust.
Mm.
In fact, and I hope my Jewish friends don't get offended, but I get tired of the Holocaust, okay?
Yeah.
Because every time I look around, it's a movie or something about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But we as African Americans are afraid to talk about slavery.
Yes.
We don't tell our children about the past.
Yes.
The Bible is a story of a people who have affirmed themselves as God's children.
Yes.
And they tell about the slavery time in Egypt.
Absolutely.
They talk about the times when Assyria came and rampaged. And they talk about Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
But we don't want to talk about our negatives.
Mm.
Our children don't know about our negative times because we are ashamed of who we were. Yeah. When we ought to be praising God and giving Him all the glory and the honor for having brought us through those times for a purpose. Mm. And that purpose is to be a witness of what God can do. Mm-hmm. But we don't train our children like that. And so they go out trying to find out who they are through drugs, through promiscuous sex.
Yes.
Babies having babies. You know, and we wonder why. Mm. It's because we, as parents, have failed to really teach our children. Mm-hmm. And so they go out
and many of the young people don't have parents to raise them.
That is another issue.
Yeah.
That is another issue. There's too many of our families don't have male and female parents. And as you know, that's one of the strong points of the unification church. Mm. And that's a strong point of the Christian church,
yes.
The family.
Yes.
But because of so many problems, economic and social, education, and all of that, our families have degenerated.
Yeah. So what hope do you see for the future? What can we do as citizens, as parents, as community leaders, as politicians, religious leaders, what can the community do to turn things around and begin to address the serious issues facing young minorities in America?
Mm-hmm. Bret, I wish I had an answer to that. I wish I had an answer. Because there's so many things that need to be done.
Yeah.
First of all and foremost, the leading institution in our communities has been and yet is the church.
Uh-huh.
And until the church affirms its role in the community, reestablishing the values that were ours,
Yes.
of morality, of honesty, of integrity, our communities, our children, our families will continue to become degenerative, will become less of importance in our community.
Really.
The church has got to reestablish itself. I say this in Compton. I say we have 11.6 square miles of territory, and in there are over 100 churches. Yet we have over 30 gangs with drugs, all of the things that gangs bring about.
Yeah.
If the churches, 100 churches, were actively involved in trying to effectuate change and teaching morals and whatever that case may be, there would be no problem with gangs.
Exactly.
Because those are our kids.
Exactly.
Those are kids of folk who go to church or whose parents went to church at one time.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer then is the church. Because all of our politicians say they are Christians or at least they are religious.
Well, we've noticed that for many social problems that exist in this country, we cannot rely on politicians to solve them. That much is clear.
I know that's right.
So the churches may be the best hope.
In fact, I think it's the only hope.
Yeah.
Because the school system is really politics. The economic system is politics.
Yeah.
The what is all of these really have their bearings. Politics have bearings on all of these.
Yeah.
The only institution that should be politic-free,
yeah, should be. I understand.
should be politic-free, is the church.
Right.
And it's the only one that I know of that has a mandate from the founder to, what did it say, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and declare that this year is a divine year. This year is a special year. Yeah. We have a mandate to go and make disciples. Yeah. Jesus the Christ has just given us all kinds of instructions as to what the church should be about.
Absolutely.
But we have watered it down so that the church is about raising money, paying good salaries, and occasionally feeding some hungry folk, and having some clothes to give away.
So that's where you find complacency then.
Yes. The church has just lost. What's lost is it's like the salt. Once it lost its flavor, it's good for nothing. Yeah. But to be thrown out, I'm not going to say throw the church out.
No, of course not.
But it's almost to that point.
Yeah.
It's almost to that point that the church is not doing what it should be doing. The church has its own agenda now.
Well, it's been fascinating listening to you share, and I wish we had more time, and I'm confident in the future we'll make more time together to listen to your wisdom and hopefully learn from your experience. For right now, all I can do is thank you for being our guest on today's program.
Thank you for inviting me,
It's been
Bret.
a real pleasure. Our guest has been Dr. William R. Johnson, Jr. And if you want to know more information about our program, you can check the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.